Welcome to the Finding Financial Freedom podcast with the Frugal Physician, where Dr. Disha Spath will be your companion on this exciting financial adventure. Get ready to conquer debt, build wealth, and embrace a mindful spending lifestyle that will empower you to live life on your own terms.
This show is sponsored by Set for Life Insurance, the ultimate client experience in the insurance industry. Are you looking for the perfect insurance coverage that suits your needs? Founded in 1993 by President Jamie K. Fleischner, Set for Life Insurance specializes in individual life, disability, and long-term care insurance. As brokers, they represent numerous companies in the industry, ensuring that their clients get the best products at the most cost-effective rate. What sets Set for Life Insurance apart? You'll enjoy special discounts, priority underwriting handling, and even exceptions in the underwriting process. So why wait? Contact Set for Life Insurance today and let them be your insurance partner for life. Visit their website at www.setforlifeinsurance.com or call them toll-free at 1-888-553-3559. Welcome back to the Finding Financial Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Disha Spath, aka the Frugal Physician. Today, we're diving deep into the emotional heartbeat of why many of us became doctors in the first place: joy. And who better to guide us back to that joy than someone who's literally written the book on it? Dr. Cory Fawcett is a retired surgeon, physician coach, and real estate investor, and the author of the beloved Doctor's Guide book series. His latest book, The Doctor's Guide to Reclaiming the Joy of Practicing Medicine, is an uplifting, actionable guide for doctors stuck in survival mode. So whether you're teetering on burnout, considering an exit, or simply craving more fulfillment in your day-to-day, you're going to want to listen to this one. So Dr. Fawcett, welcome back.
Oh, thanks. It's always fun to talk to you again.
And I'm really excited to hear your take on this book for my audience today. So let's start with what inspired you to write The Doctor's Guide to Reclaiming the Joy of Practicing Medicine.
So I was at a meeting that had nothing to do with medicine. I was at it was a different kind of a thing. And we broke for dinner and they sent everybody to dinner. And I sat down next to this guy who had 2 cell phones sitting on the table. And I thought that was kind of unusual. Here we are at this beautiful resort. Away from here, I'm thinking, oh, what a great getaway. They're paying for it all. This is so nice. And here's this guy with these 2 cell phones. And I'm thinking, what's going on? Well, it turns out he's a physician. Mm-hmm. And one of those is his regular phone and one of them is his work phone. And I kept thinking, why would somebody come to a beautiful resort at a conference and still be answering calls from work? And so I began to ask him about that. And realize that he's on call. He's on call all the time, even when he goes on vacation. He thinks that's the only way it could be done. And anything I tried to start, tell him, hey, there's a better way. You can do this, you can do that. I teach people to do this better. And everything I said, he had a comeback for why it won't work for him. No, I can't do that because I can't do that because. And pretty soon my wife starts kicking me under the table because she was there next to me. It was like, stop trying to give him advice. He doesn't want any advice. I don't know how many times you've been in that situation where you just want to help somebody, but they're not asking for it. And so it doesn't work out. So on the way back to our hotel room after dinner, I stopped once she kicked me. I stopped saying anything. We just talked about whatever and the conference and stuff like that. I quit trying to make his life better. He had resigned to 2 more years of misery and then he would retire. It's like, How many times have you heard somebody say that? Oh, I just got to put up with this for 5 more years and then I'm out of here. Why? Yeah. Why should we do that? So on the walk back to the hotel is when this came to me. I kept thinking, why is he not happy? What's going on? And it dawned on me what the problem was. And it's the first chapter in this book. The problem is inertia. It takes a lot of energy to change a direction of something. Or if something is completely stopped, It takes a lot of energy to get it going. And so we don't like change because it takes a lot of work to do something different, to make a change. So here's this guy that's 2 years to go. He doesn't have to change anything. He just get through 2 more years. He feels like it would be more energy, more effort, more work to try and change it and make it better. So just not going to do that. And it's this inertia effect that keeps us stuck in stuff we don't like. And what does inertia sound like in a doctor's practice? That's the way we've always done it. They'll never go for that, or that won't work for me. And when we do that, we're pegging us to stay right into that hole for the rest of our life because we don't want to change. Nobody likes to do that. And sometimes the smallest change can make a huge difference in your life.
Well, as a primary care doc, I can certainly empathize with this doc situation and sometimes feeling like, you have to. And I have to say, I've been guilty of doing that myself, carrying 2 cell phones at conferences and answering calls from patients because, it's necessary sometimes in certain fields to be available. At least that's what we lead ourselves to believe.
Somebody needs to be available, but
Right.
it can't always be you. You've got to have time where you can pass that other phone off to somebody else. You're covering for me while I take a break.
Yes.
Otherwise,
exactly.
when do we ever get a break?
Right, exactly. And you can't keep going if you can't get any time off without cell phones going off and people needing you. So I totally hear that. And, we all know inertia is strong in medicine, whether it comes to individual change or just systemic change, adapting to technologies and such. It takes a long time for medicine to change anything. So I'm glad you wrote this book for that reason, just to make us think about the fact that we do have the option of pursuing joy and and making boundaries. Yeah. And, people will respect that as long as it actually means that you continue to practice, right? Because they do want their doctor around. So you open the book with an encounter about the biggest killer of joy in life. Can you walk us through that story and what it taught you?
Here's the bad problem. We know what we need to fix because we tell it to ourselves every day. Okay. And so we don't listen to this little voice in our head that says one of these 3 things. I hate this, I love this, or I wish this. I think this is the story that you're referring to. I call this an aha moment. Okay. Where you should be saying, aha, that's what I need to do to be happy, to be joyful. I had such an aha moment. And what we usually do when we have these, you say, oh, I hate this, is we just go right ahead and do it. What I want you to do is just say, I hate this, write that down and figure out how to make it better, how to make it go away, or how to make it less prominent in your life. Or if you say, I love this, write that down and then figure out how to make more of it in your life. Because you just told yourself the secret to success, the secret to more joy. You know what it is, and you're just not listening to yourself say it.
Well, it sounds easy. But a lot of us are employed physicians. We don't really have control over what's demanded of us. And a lot of us are told what to do. And if we don't do what they tell us to do, then we get fired. So many physicians do feel like they have this no control over their careers anymore because they are employees.
That's a false impression. We put that on ourselves. Oh, I can't do anything about it. That's what we say to ourselves. That's inertia. Oh, I can't do anything about it. So I'll just keep doing it the way it is. But the thing is, if you approach your employer, you have a lot of power. You're the doctor. You're the one making things happen. You have a lot of power, even when you're an employed physician. And when you approach this with not an approach to say, hey, I'm having a problem, you need to fix it. They're not interested in that. Okay. And that's what most of us think we need to do to make something happen. But you got to look at the problem that you're facing and ask these 3 questions. So what? Who cares? And what's in it for me? Because that's what the other guy's thinking. Your boss, when you come to him with a problem, is thinking, so what? Who cares? What's in it for me? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So a good example of that is when I go to the operating room and I want to get 4 cases done today, but they only can get 3 done because the turnover time is long. Now I can go to my CEO, my boss, I can say, hey, listen, you guys are costing me a lot of money because I can't get that 4th case in and I need to get stuff done. It's backing up my thing. You need to change this stuff so that it's better for me. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They're not interested in that. And that's the approach employees tend to take in every field, not just doctors. But what if you approached him differently or her and said, I noticed a problem that's costing you guys a lot of money. Do you realize that we could easily, with a change in how turnover time is done, we could easily do 4 cases instead of 3 with the same personnel in the same amount of time. So you'd have the same expenses, but you'd get to charge for 4 cases. But instead, you're leaving all that money on the table. And I'd sure like to get some new equipment in the OR. And I keep hearing everybody saying, yeah, you don't have the money to get the equipment. But maybe we don't have the money because we're doing only 3 cases when we should do 4 with the same personnel. And you can see that now the wheels are turning in their head. Oh, wait a minute. This could make me a lot of money. Our hospital could do a lot better if we did this. If you approach it with what's in it for them, not just about what you want, it's the same problem. It affects me, it affects them. But they're only interested in them, not me. I'm only interested in me, not them. And so if both of us take that tact, nothing happens. But if you approach it with how it will be better for them if we do it this way, they're happy to do it because it makes sense. So there really isn't anything as an employed physician that you should be saying, that's the way I have to do it. That's the way they tell me it has to be done. Because if it's not working out well for you, it's probably also not working out well for lots of other people, including the hospital. I had a great example in my life, and I told this story in the book about my miserable Mondays. And whether I was an employed physician or owned my own practice, the same thing happens. And I would wake up, I'm on call Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Monday morning was horrible. I had a full clinic that day. I picked up 10 new patients in the hospital. I got 2 of them that need surgery today. I can't get all that in. I end up canceling a bunch of patients to get the operation done. It's a terrible day. And I'm tired from being on call all weekend, right?
Right. Sounds terrible.
Every time I would wake up on that Monday, I would wake up and say, oh, I hate the Mondays after call. And guess what I did? I just went to work and did it.
Mm-hmm.
The next time, oh, I hate the Mondays after call. I just went to work and did it. Years I did that. And one day I woke up and said, I hate the Mondays after call. And I thought, I wonder if I could make it better. And I thought of an idea. Well, what if, I'm booked in the office all day. The office doesn't like canceling patients. The patients don't like getting canceled. Nobody likes it. You can't get them rescheduled into a good time. And this is a terrible mess for a bunch of people in the whole system involving my work. And I thought of a solution. What if on the day after being on call, I don't have patients booked in there? Because they're going to get messed up anyway. And I've got a full day of work to do, whether those patients are booked in there or not. So why don't we make everybody's? So I went into the office manager that morning. And when I first got there, I said, hey, listen, I want to make a change. What if on the Mondays after my call weekend, we don't book any patients? Just book me out of the office that day because there's so much work to do. We have to cancel a bunch of patients and all that stuff. And you know what my office manager said? Okay. That was it. That was all there was, because it was such a simple thing to do. All they have to do is look on the schedule. They can see way in advance when I'm on call for the weekend and just say no patients that day. From that day forward, I never had another one of those miserable problems. It was a self-inflicted wound. I made it worse because I booked a whole bunch of patients in there that I was not going to be able to see. The reality is it ain't going to happen. So even if I was an employed physician, I could go to the boss and say, look, every time we do this, we have to cancel these patients. They get mad. They give you bad reviews. We can't get them back in. It crams up everything. This is silly that we're doing it this way. We should make a change. And it should be happening. This change should happen on all of the people who have busy call schedules on that weekend and come into Monday with a mess. And, orthopedics, general surgery are two big ones that pick up a lot of stuff on the weekend. And your boss, when you see all the mess that is going to save if we make this change, is probably going to say, that's probably a good idea because we don't want those patients giving us bad reviews for canceling them. No one will keep their word around here because they said they were going to see me and now they cancel me at the last minute. I already took the day off work. It's a mess. And so you do have control. I spent the last 3 years of my practice kind of as an employed physician in locums work. I started doing locums work. And then one of the companies that one of the hospital systems I did it for said, why don't you just come here all the time and cover for our guys and stop going around everywhere else? And I became kind of their employee I'd come in a week, do my job and leave. And even as that guy, I'm not even in their system. I just come in now and then and help. As an employee, I was able to make things happen even in that setting. And if I could do it as the temp guy, if you're the regular, you could do it. You have the power, but you've got to realize that you do have that power, that you could make suggestions that would make changes to make your life better, and you could experience more joy in your life. Don't give up just because the boss says, remember, that's the way we've always done it. You're falling for inertia. That's the way that they do it here. I just have to go along with it and keep going in the same direction because changing directions takes too much energy. Put in the energy and your life will get better.
In your coaching practice, how do you help physicians reconnect or connect for the first time with those aha moments like you just described? How do you lead people to that?
Listen for it. They will often say these aha moments while we're talking. And when I hear one and I say, stop, wait, did you hear what you just said? You hate this thing? Okay, write that down. and so in the first session, it's 12 sessions that we're going to have in the first block. And so during 12 sessions, they keep hearing me say, hey, wait a minute, write that down. You just told yourself what you need to do. They begin to see those. We have them all the time, but we're not recognizing them. We don't see them. And so what I do is when I see it or hear it, bring it to their attention and realize that's an aha moment. Right there, you just said the secret to your happiness. When I play the piano someplace, almost always somebody comes up to say, oh, I always wanted to play the piano. I just love the piano. It would be so cool if I could play the piano. I always wanted to do that. My answer is to them, great. Tomorrow when you get home, why don't you call a piano teacher and schedule a lesson? No,
How
then
many
I
people
get
do?
all of these things. Oh no, I can't because of this. I can't. No, I can't do. But you just told me you love the piano. You wish you could play the piano. You want to do this. This is something that would bring joy in your life. And I just told you how to do it. And you're saying no because of this. They've got a long list of why they can't take piano lessons. It's baloney. Of course they could take piano lessons. If they really wanted that, and they really would write that down and say, piano, learn to play the piano. Do I really want that? If the answer is yes, then take piano lessons. Don't see me next time I play there and say, oh, I sure wish I could. No, next time you see me, say, hey, I learned to play this song and I love it.
Nice. Yeah, that would be awesome. That would be great. I mean, it is human nature to just like to wish, but not take action. And I'm so glad you are pointing this out because all of us need that little push sometimes. Be like, listen, you want this, go for it, right?
If you
Make it
think about
happen.
it, you could probably, I'll bet you if you just sat down right now, how many times have I said, I hate this, or I love this, or I wish I could do this? And you could probably write 20 things down right away that you've said this to yourself repeatedly, but never took any action. It's like
Right.
having a bucket list. You got these 30 places you'd like to visit in your life, right? Before you die, and you never go. You've marked them, you've written them down, but here's what I like to tell people. Every year, take one item off your bucket list and put it on your calendar. Just one. Pick one, put that one on your calendar. That will be this year's vacation. Something on your bucket list. Not just something that's easy, but pick something on there and make it happen. Otherwise, 20 years later, you just have the same bucket list. These are the 20 things I want to do, but you haven't done any of them. We have the power to change things in our life if we'll overcome the inertia to stay the same. I'm learning to play pickleball now. I'm learning a new sport at age 63, and I'm playing in my first tournament next weekend from when we're talking today.
Congratulations.
Thanks. It's kind of been a fun thing to learn something new, and it does take time and effort. And every one of those aha moments will require some sort of a time and effort to make it happen. And that's what we think we don't have. We don't have the time and we don't have the energy to put in the effort. And so it's easier to just keep going the way we are. But I'm telling you, if you want your life to be more joyful, you're going to have to do something different. You can't keep doing the same thing and expect it's going to get better.
Right. This definition of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting different results.
I've had a lot of coaching clients call me I do a financial coaching program and expecting me to give them some secret that will allow them to keep spending the way they are, and yet they'll save money. And it's like, no, wait a minute. You spend all of the money you make. Which of these things that you spend money on are you willing to cut out so that you can save money? And the answer is often, well, none of them. I'm calling you to help me save money without having to cut these things. It's like, you can't do that. You got to change something.
Well, I'm glad you bring up money because a lot of what we're talking about right now, like canceling some of the patients on Monday, for example, for you, would result in a loss of revenue, a loss of money for the exchange of, joy and happiness and better life.
I would say that's a misperception. Okay. Everybody thinks that if I cancel that day, my income will go down, but that's not true. If I looked at my day, that day, the way it's really going to go down is half of those patients are going to get canceled anyway, right? They're getting canceled whether you do it now or do it beforehand and put them, and they're going to get rescheduled. Okay. You're still going to see all of those patients. You're still going to get the billing for all of those patients. The money isn't really going to change. Every single person who came to me and talked about some change they wanted to make, including myself, I'll tell you my story about that in a second. Every single one of them said they were afraid to make the change because it was going to drop their revenue or drop their RVUs.
Right.
They made the change and saw no change in their revenue or their RVUs because that's a false statement. It's not going to change. If you said, I'm going to go to taking 6 months off a year, okay, now that's going to change your revenue because you're only working 6 months. But when you move these patients out of that to a different slot, you're still doing all of that work. You're just doing it in a way that's not going to get extra work for everybody when you got to keep moving the patient. What happened to me, as my business got busy, I wanted to cut back on some things. And I thought, well, what is it that I don't like? What would I love to give up? And I didn't like doing vascular surgery and thoracic surgery. I'm in a small town, and so we do those things because there's not a vascular specialist. There's not a thoracic specialist. So we do that. And I thought, I want to cut those because those patients are in the ICU. They get more phone calls. They're more sick. It was like they're more of a pain to handle than, say, a hernia repair. A lot more involved. And so I thought, well, if I was to cut something, I'd cut those. But those were the highest paying cases I did. And I was afraid to make that change. I was afraid to cut those for fear of two things. My revenue would go down and the other surgeons would get mad at me for not doing them. Okay. I thought of those two things. It wasn't until I became debt free and no longer was my house at risk of not being able to make the payments. No longer was my car at risk. I had no debts. Then I had the courage to take the step and I canceled all of those patients. I never saw any more thoracic or vascular cases. I told my office manager to take all of the vascular cases, give them to this partner. They love vascular surgery. Let them do it. All my thoracic cases, give them to this partner. He loves that stuff. Let him do it. And you know what happened to my income? Nothing. Because their schedules were full too. So when I moved those cases to them, something had to go back to me. They had to give up something to. So I got more of cases I liked and less of the ones I didn't like. They got more of cases they liked and less of the ones they didn't like because we didn't like and dislike the same stuff. One guy loves vascular surgery. So my perception that my income would drop if I did this was incorrect. It did not change. I was still doing, even when I dropped the Mondays, I'm still doing all of that work. I'm just putting it in a place where it's not going to get canceled and make extra work for my office staff. Now they're free to do other work. So I think if you ever think, I don't want to do that because it's going to cost me money, I think you need to rethink that because most of the time that's not true. We think it will, but it doesn't happen. And everybody who's made some of these changes and talked to me about it has had that same thought, oh, it'll be expensive. I can't do that. And it wasn't afterwards. I told some examples in the book of guys that did that. Just don't limit yourself by, I think it'll cost me too much money. You may be wrong on that account.
I can see this working in like small practices where the people around you, or can go talk to a person that might be in charge of things. But a lot of us work for really large hospital systems that are ruled by private equity, or some CEO in a different state, and it's a national company. How can employed physicians in such a like a large conglomeration like that advocate for their joy and autonomy?
I think in the larger the group, the easier it is to make the changes because you have way more people to distribute the stuff to. If it's just you and a partner, just the two of you, it makes it harder to do. I can't stop doing this because it's going to put the load on my partner. But if there's 1,000 of you in the group, you can see if you quit, they would just absorb your stuff and it would be fine and no one would notice the difference. But I think take the mindset that if it's better for me to do this, it's probably better for a bunch of other people if this happens too. And I remember talking with one guy in a place like you're describing. His answer to me was, I don't even know a physician who's in private practice. Every physician in this town is owned by the hospital. Everybody. Okay.
Yeah.
And we were talking about something that he should change. And, it was like, no, it can't be done. Right. The next day, somebody else in the same system said to me the same problem. And he said, if you tried this, this might take care of it. And they did it. They tried it and they changed it. They work for the same people. They were in the same specialty. They were in the next building. It was exactly the same environment. And one of them said, it can't be done. I'm an employee. And the other one said, I think I can fix it. And they did. Same problem, same place. I remember walking down a corridor on my way to do a colonoscopy, and I wasn't sure if they were ready for me yet. And I went down there, and there's 2 colonoscopy rooms, and they were both just getting finished. And I didn't know, what time would mine be. And I walked down the hall. The first doctor comes by me who just left his room and says, "Oh man, I hate this stuff. This is driving me crazy. I can't believe, how much work I got to do today." He was grumbling about it. Right behind him, as I went past him, another doctor just came out of the other room and says, "Oh man, I love doing colonoscopies. This is so great. I'm so good at this. This is fun." They were in the exact same kind of practice. They were in the same building. They were doing the same procedure. One of them was happy. One of them was not. It wasn't the job. That made no difference. It wasn't the facility. That made no difference. It wasn't the kind of thing they're doing. None of that mattered. The only variable was the person who it was affecting. One of them decided that they didn't like. One of them decided they like. And that's the way it was in that other town where the one guy says, "Yeah, but everybody's an employee here. We can't make any changes." And the next day, another person in the same system says, "I think I can fix that." And they did. So don't limit yourself and think that just because of X, I can't do Y. There's a chapter called The List of 10. Okay. And this is what I tell everybody who says what you're saying. I can't because, okay. I want you to write down 10 ways that you could fix this problem. Okay. And you cannot go after any of them until you've got all 10 listed. And you cannot qualify them and say, "Oh, well, that'll never work." If you could say to yourself, "If that worked, it would solve my problem," I want you to write 10 of those down. Because here's what we do. We think of 1 or 2 ways to do it. And we think, those will never work. And then we quit. "Oh, I wish I could do this. Well, what I could, So a big one is like, "Oh, I hate my job. I need a new job." "Well, could you make it better?" "Well, I could do this. That wouldn't work. Maybe this. I hate my job. I need a new job." But here's the thing. When you force yourself to do 10 of them, by the time you get to around 5, 6, and 7, that's where the gold is. Because 1 and 2, 3, those first few ones, those are the ones everybody thinks of. And multiple people you've seen try this and that didn't work, But then you start thinking, well, what else could be done? And by the time you get to 5 and 6, man, you're coming up with some cool ideas. Well, I hadn't thought of that before. That might be. And by the time you get down to number 10, you're just making something up to finish the list. But so the first couple of them that you put down usually aren't the answer. The last couple, you're just filling in the list. That's usually not the answer. It's in the middle when you're really thinking about the problem that you come up with, oh. So if you think of the guy who says everybody's an employee here, we can't change anything, he's probably thought of one thing that he wanted to change. He tried one thing, thought of one thing, didn't work, and gave up, right? But the other one starts thinking outside the box. How could I do that? Well, I could do this, or maybe this, or maybe this. But if you force yourself to do it 10 times, I got to have 10 things that would work. Almost guaranteed something on that list is going to work. And the first 2 items, the CEO's probably heard those so many times, So all you have to do is think. You wish this item would change. So write down 10 things that could work. Maybe they'll work. Maybe they won't. You're not going to know. I had a gentleman, I told this story in the book, that wanted to get off a call. That's one of the toughest ones to do. Everybody wants to get off call, right?
Mm-hmm.
But everybody has a different level of wanting to get off call. He told me, I really need to get off call. He explained why. And I thought, oh man, you really do need to get off call. This is really a problem for you. And he says, yeah, but it's impossible. I can't do it. And I made him write 10 ways to do it. And we came up with a way. And he says, well, that'll never work. And I said, I think it'll work. I think you need to try it. And you need to try it with 100% gusto. You think it'll work, you're going to go for it. If it works, I've solved my problem. He says, it'll never work. So he says, okay, but I'll try it and I'll prove to you that this won't work. So the next time I talk to him, he says, I can't believe it. I'm off call for the next 6 months. It worked.
What was the solution?
For him, it really doesn't matter what the solution was, because in every individual situation, it's going to be a different thing.
Sure.
And so if you're listening to this, don't listen to this one solution and say, well, see, it'll never work for me and I can't do it. Okay. But his solution was he was only on call 3 days a month. That means he's got 10 partners, right? And some of those partners are young, eager, big loans, wants a new car, big house. They want overtime. So the guy who wants to do this, he's nearing retirement, has all the money he needs. He likes his job, but he just wish he could get rid of this one thing. He would be a lot more joyful if he could get rid of this one thing. And so what he did was he approached his 3 youngest people with the concept that if you would take one of my call days each month, I'll pay you to take it. So they would get the money from him and higher RVUs, so a bigger bonus, if they would do this. All 3 of them took 1 day. So they went from having 3 days a month of call to only 4. That's not a tough deal for most doctors. Most of us can easily go from 3 to 4 and not really notice that. But for him, it was different. I don't want to go into why it was different, but for him, he really needed to get rid of the 3. And here was a guy who totally was convinced there is no way I can do this, and none of these ideas will work. And yet when he actually says, okay, I'm going to go for one and see what happens, it worked. So don't limit yourself by saying it'll never happen, because the options are there. And you think of things in the manner that you perceive them. He perceives call as a miserable thing. I never perceived that. But he perceives everybody else thinks the same way as me. So they all hate call just as much as me, so no one will take my extra call. But that's not true. They don't think of call the same way that you do. I took extra call now and then. Somebody says, hey, I got to go do this. My kid's got some play. Could you cover for me and take my call? Sure. It was no big deal to take an extra day here and there. And I think most doctors are like that. But some of them, that extra day is big. And here's a really cool thing to remember. Just because they pay you doesn't make it more joyful. If you hate taking call, do not take an extra call day because someone will pay you. Because now, you'll have some money in the bank, but you'll have done something you hate more of, right? If you hate something, you want to do less of it if you want more joy in your life. And so paying me to do something I hate just puts more of something in my life I don't like for money I really didn't need. That extra money is really not going to make a big difference in the long run for you. But not doing things that you hate will. And there was a guy in a big company asked his employees, what makes your work fun? What things make your work fun? And they had everybody list whatever they said. And all of these things they listed, nobody said the pay. Nobody said the benefits. Nobody said how many weeks of vacation I get. None of those things make your work fun. Okay? Find the things for you that make it fun and get more of that in there. Find the things you don't like and take less of that in there. Do not ever say, well, I'll do more of that thing I don't like if you'll pay me. I've heard that so many times. I hate taking call, but if you'll pay me, I'll double my call. And you're going to double your misery. Was it worth the money?
Right. That calls into question the whole YOLO versus FIRE idea, right? Both are people that are really seeking joy. YOLO mentality is, I want joy now at whatever cost, but I need to live now because might die tomorrow.
Mhm.
And the other group of people that are seeking joy are wanting to just accumulate a lot of wealth so that they can retire early from their regular career and then just pursue their joy full time and hope they live until then. So how do you balance that in your joy coaching?
There's a chapter I talk about finding the real why. Okay. And this is the problem that they have. They don't know what their why is, but somebody told them if you do this, it'll be better. Right. And so the great example of that is the person who says, "Oh, I hate my job." The answer is, "I need to get a new job." Okay. But if you do that, you're going to hate that job too, because you didn't find the real why. What is it about this job that you hate? What is it that needs fixing? Because if you don't fix that and you jump to another job, it may have the same thing and you just wasted that whole effort. There was a lady who contacted me because she fell into the FIRE movement and the rhetoric that goes with the FIRE movement of you have to be financially independent and then you can practice your way. Okay. That's rhetoric and it's not correct. Okay. And what she had done was she had fallen into that. I have to be financially independent and then we can practice in our own way. And what she said was she and her husband were both doctors. Okay. She worked half time. He worked full time. They made 3 times their expenses in income. They made a lot of money. And her husband was putting in a lot of overtime to get more money so that they had financial independence sooner. And the reason she contacted me was she had read my real estate book and she wanted to duplicate what I did because that would be faster to get to FIRE, right? And so as I asked her, I said, "So why do you want to do this?" "Well, because I want our family to have more time together." "How will you get that?" "Well, because then if we can get financially independent, my husband could work half time also, and then we'd have plenty of time." "Does your husband like your job?" "Yeah." "Do you like yours?" Everybody likes their job. They don't want to quit, but they want to work less, right? And I said, "Do you really love real estate?" "Not really, but it's the fastest way to FIRE so that I can now do practice my own way," right? This was they just kept
Right.
saying that
A
over and
very
over and over.
common,
And
common thought.
and I said, "Well, here's the thing. What you really want, let me ask you this question. What you really want is for your husband to work part-time so that you guys have more family time together and you can do more vacations together. Is that correct?" And the way she answered it was, "Yes, what I really want is to be financially independent so that my husband could work part-time." I didn't have financially independent anywhere in my answer, but she said, "Yes, that's what it is." And he says, "Listen, I don't think you should buy real estate because you don't really want to do that. You're just trying to chase after becoming financially independent. You make 3 times more money than you guys spend now. And your husband is working extra. He's making even worse for what you're after to get money. Why don't you have your husband go to part-time right now and you can have it now? You can have it. Everything, what your real why is to get your husband home. And you can do that now. Because if he went to half-time, you would be making twice as much money as you spend. And you could save all of that and you would be saving more money than most people ever do. And so why would you wait until you're financially independent to do the thing you really want to do when you could do it today?" And she had
Right.
never thought that she could do it right now. And she talked to her husband. Her husband talked to their boss. They went over things. I talked to her a week later, and she says, everybody was okay with him going to halftime. We're going to do it now. So there's the FIRE movement and the only live once movement. But the thing is, both of them are taking things to the extreme And there is an answer in between that says you can have the joy you want now, and you don't have to wait until you're financially independent to do that. And she made the change now. It's like, you wonder, why didn't you think that he could just go to halftime now? You make all this money, way more than you need, with 2 physicians, and you live in a low cost of living area. Why don't you just work halftime? And she never thought of it because she kept hearing over and over, first you get financial independence, and then you can have the practice that you want. And that's not true. You can have the practice that you want today if you'll just listen for your aha moments and figure out what it is you're really looking for. She got into the mindset that what she was really looking for was financial independence. That's what she thought she was looking for. But what she was really looking for was for her husband to work halftime.
Right.
That's really what she wanted. And so she was chasing after the wrong dream. What is the real thing you're looking for? When you say, I hate my job, what is it really that you hate? Because the thing is, if you leave your job, somebody else is going to take that job thinking they're going to love it. It's the same job. Why are they going to love it and you're going to hate it? Okay. There's something about it that is the problem. If you fix that, would it be good? And so many people have talked to me afterwards and said, the moment I fixed that, I was so happy with my practice. The moment I gave up vascular and thoracic surgery, it just lifted my spirit. I was so much happier with what I was doing in the day. Because every time I saw a vascular patient, it's like the hair on the back of my neck would stand up and, oh, I don't want to do this, you know? And I got rid of all of that. And suddenly my job was so much better. Same job. But instead of saying, I hate my job, there's too much anxiety, there's too many calls, there's all this stuff going on, that was not really the truth. The truth was I hated doing vascular and thoracic surgery. If I tackled the real problem, my life became way more joyful. And you've got to keep asking yourself, why? Why do I want this? You get an answer. Okay, well, why do I want that? You get an answer. Until you get to the end of the whys, and that's the thing you're really after. And everything up to that was what you thought you needed to do to get the thing you're really after. Like, it's not money that you're really after. What you're really after is the things the money will get you.
Right.
So you think you need more money to get those things. But if you figured out what the things are you want, you may be able to get them with way less money. Once you know that's really what I'm wanting to have. Don't lead yourself down the wrong goal or the wrong dream, thinking that's what you're after. It wasn't the money you're after. It was what the money was going to get you that you wanted. And it wasn't financial independence that couple was after. It was him working half time.
Balance.
Once you figure out what you really want, you can find, I forgot who coined it, but you can have anything you want, but you can't have everything you want.
Everything.
Okay.
Paula Pan.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. You can have anything you want, but you can't have everything you want. And the problem we face is we haven't figured out what we want. And until you figure out what you really want, you can't get it.
Yes. Wise words. Wise words. Exactly. And I think that's such a good reminder. But before I let you go, I do want to talk about, and I'm glad you talked about getting things for less than you expected to. Your profile recently put up a post putting up a whole bunch of things on sale for way less than MSRP. And I want to notify any of our followers that follow you on social media that that is a scam. Dr. Fawcett was recently hacked. So let's talk about that. You just got back into your social media, right?
Yes. Some hackers got a hold of my Facebook and Messenger. And once they got into it, changed the passwords, changed the emails that connect it, changed the two-factor authentication to them. And suddenly they owned my Facebook following. And so when they posted this thing, then it was kind of almost too good to be true. And everybody wanted to buy stuff. And they had it set up so that you would put a down payment on and then you'd be holding it first come, first serve. And so people were wanting to get that held. And you were one of the people who saw that, contacted me separate from Facebook. Fortunately, you had a way to get me that wasn't through Facebook, which they controlled. Anybody who contacted them through Facebook, you were talking to the hacker and he was trying to get your money. If you contacted me some other way, then I was able to say, don't do that. He's got my account, you know? And so it was crazy. 10 days he had control, or she, or they, or I don't know what, probably some big group had control of that account, and I couldn't get it back. And I finally accomplished that because Facebook sent me a different algorithm. They finally decided that I hadn't just forgot my password, but I had been hacked. And it would be easy if you look at the account. You can see, holy cow, all of this stuff got changed suddenly. And now the original owner is saying, hey, wait a minute, this isn't right. Something's wrong. You know, and so they gave me a new algorithm that would then get me back into the account and take the hacker out. And 10 days later, and then I had to go through and clean up the mess that they made.
Oh my gosh.
I don't think anybody got scammed.
Well, that's good. You were selling like, according to that post, like 4 or 5 cars for like 10,000 below MSRP or something crazy amount. And, you know, I saw that. And I think it's a good reminder to ourselves that if something looks too good to be true on the internet, it probably is, right? Which is why I reached out to you separately, because it's a common scam. So it's something to be aware of. But at the same time, we're also talking about getting things for less than you think, getting your joy in medicine for less than you think it's going to cost, right? So this is not a scam. This is actually a scam that's a scam that your own brain is playing against you because you are stuck in inertia, like Dr. Fawcett said. So while this is also on the internet, take that message away. But if you do see things online that are being sold for way below what you think they should cost, then your flag should go up. And if you do follow Dr. Fawcett, please make sure that you're not responding to that spam message. It's a whole bunch of things.
It went everywhere. They sent that message into every group I'm part of. And now I'm sure all those group leaders are all mad at me because you're not supposed to be advertising on this group. And here you are, you're blacklisted forever. And it wasn't me. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. You know,
oh my gosh.
But we have experiences like that. I mean, there are setbacks all along the way. And let's not let the setbacks, you know, there was one point I spent several days so eaten up by this. How many times have we been eaten up by something? Something happened at work and it just, you know, they claimed a malpractice against me. Oh, and now for 6 years, you're eaten up inside. And I was eaten up for several days. It ruined Easter. The Easter party that we had at our house happened on the same day the hack happened. And I'm trying to get this controlled and can't. And I'm missing the Easter party because I'm in my room trying to get, you know, I finally one day said, you know what? There are other people who don't even use Facebook. If I totally lost my Facebook, is it going to really matter to me? And I finally was at peace that, okay, because I'm probably not going to, you know, after 9 days of fighting with this, I'm probably never going to get this back, you know, and I was at peace now. And I was so up in arms. I was so anxious for all that time that thinking that this was a disaster in my life. And the reality was it didn't even matter. The only people it's going to matter for is if somebody gets scammed on the other end. Okay.
Right.
And I'm going to feel bad about that. And it looks like nobody did. They kind of, you know, I got into their direct messages after I got back and read them and was sent people, hey, I'm back. This is a scam. But you can read the path as they realized, as they're talking to them, something's not right here. You know, it just doesn't sound right. But how many times have we done this to ourselves. We've made us feel bad. And then internally, we make it worse. You have the power to control your joy. No one else does. And there's a cool story I did in the book of a lottery winner. Imagine you just won the lottery and you're watching the lottery and you just won and you are jumping up and down for joy. Your spouse comes around. What's going on? We just won the lottery, $800 million. You are so happy. You're screaming around. And then your wife says, oh, let me see the ticket. Oh, I've never seen a winning. And she's looking at it and she's looking at the TV and she realizes, wait a minute, your number's 58 and that's 85. We got to cut all these backwards. We didn't win the lottery. And now all of a sudden you were totally depressed. Oh, I didn't win the lottery, and you're all right back, and in the span of 60 seconds, nothing in your life actually changed. Your bank account didn't change. You didn't have a better car. You didn't go on a better vacation. Nothing in your life changed except what you were thinking about. And you became super joyful, super happy, super elated. And a few more seconds later, you were way down in the dumps. It was totally controlled by you. You made yourself happy. You made yourself sad. Nothing changed. You just thought differently. And we have the power to do that. Do I wake up Monday morning and say, oh, this is a miserable day? Or do I say, I wonder what I could do to make today great? How do you start your day? Do you start it like Eeyore? Oh dear, I gotta work today. Maybe I'll get lucky and my car will break down on the way to work. I mean, is that how you start your day? You can choose to start your day that way, or you can choose to start your day like Tigger. Oh, what a wonderful day this is going to be. I can't believe it when I get to, I am a doctor, DOCTOR. You choose the way you're going to behave, the way you're going to think. And I'd like you to choose to be Tigger. Stop choosing to be Eeyore. It's your choice. No one else brings Eeyore out of you. You do that. And you have the power to make your life more joyful.
Dr. Fawcett, thank you for reminding us that we don't have to be Eeyore and settle for misery in medicine. We can build lives and careers that actually bring us joy, and it's up to us to make it happen. If you're listening and thinking there has to be a better way, you're right. And this book just might be your blueprint. So check it out, Dr. Fawcett's latest book, The Doctor's Guide to Reclaiming the Joy of Practicing Medicine. And his full Doctor's Guide series is at drfreedompodcast.com/Fawcett or wherever you buy books. Until next time, stay joyful, stay free, and stay frugal, y'all.
The content shared on this podcast should not be taken as individualized financial advice. We are here to share our knowledge and experiences, but it is crucial to consult with professionals such as accountants, financial advisors, or attorneys who can provide personalized guidance based on your specific needs.